That was Richard Strauss. This is Michael Harding, and this is On the Arts for Southern Utah. I do have a special guest with us today. Melinda, are you there?
I'm here.
Fantastic. And Melinda, I'm going to ask you to talk up just a little bit. But to give you a little introduction here, if you will, I'd love to start out with a little story about one of the first times that I met you, as a matter of fact. This was in the late 1900s when I started at the Utah Shakespeare Festival up north. And I did several shows that I was very happy about. And there was an actress there who did shows as well. We did a few together. We did Romeo and Juliet. We also did Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And one of my favorite things to do as a young actor was to, when I wasn't performing on stage, was to walk around the festival and experience the shows that I wasn't in. And there was a particular show back in the year 2000. It was called Always Patsy Cline. And it had some wonderful actresses in it, two actresses, Kitty Belay, who did a lot of work at the Pacific Conservatory for the Performing Arts, as well as Leslie Brott, who has actually been back quite a few times here to Southern Utah to do some work at the Shakespeare Festival. And I remember I would listen to that show quite often. I would go into the lobby of the Randall and just listen because I really enjoyed it. And I remember there was one performance where I went in to listen, and there was a different voice singing the role of Patsy Cline. And I thought that was intriguing because this voice was just as good as what I was hearing before. And I thought, well, did they replace the actress or what? So I went into what is called the Cry Room, and this is a room at the back of the theater where you can take your children if they are starting to act up, or you can watch the show while it's going on without disturbing the audience. And I saw a friend of mine up there, and that was Melinda Funstein, who was understudying the role of Patsy Cline. And I have to say, I'd enjoyed her work before that, but that particular moment, she became a star in my eyes. She owned the role, and my view of her completely changed. I'm happy to say that Melinda Funstein Vaughn has gone on to have quite a career as an actress. She is a union actress. She performed in many roles at the Shakespeare Festival, as well as moving to Milwaukee and doing quite a bit of work. And now she's back continuing on this pretty amazing professional streak, if you will. She is teaching in academia at Southern Utah University, where she teaches acting as well as directs productions. And I would like to get into a little later on a production of a piece called Urinetown that is opening this weekend, I believe. Is that correct, Melinda?
That's right.
Fantastic. I'm personally looking forward to seeing that on Saturday night, but I'll also get some more information out to people who would like to see it. And on top of all of this, she is the executive director and co-founder of an organization called the Statera Foundation. And this is another thing that I think people need to be aware of nationally, and we are truly honored to have Melinda on the show. Thank you for being with us, Melinda.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so happy to be with you.
Gotcha. And let's just talk about your career a little bit. I mentioned that back in the late 1900s, we were doing shows together. And you were a student at SUU, weren't you?
I was.
Got it. And from there, you got into the Shakespeare Festival and such and did some pretty amazing work. I came to see you not only in shows that we were in, but also in shows beyond. And what took you to Milwaukee?
Work took me to Milwaukee initially, and I worked for a theater there called Milwaukee Repertory Theater. And then when I got married, we ended up moving there because my husband, Brian Vaughn, was a company member at Milwaukee Rep at that time. So we spent a good 5 years in that community and loved our time there.
Let me ask you, did you have your equity card when you went there, or is that something you earned while you were in Milwaukee?
I did. I earned my equity card at Utah Shakes. I think it was the season of My Fair Lady, and so I was just freshly out of school from Southern Utah University, and had been working with the festival for 4 or 5 years at that point, and turned that year before that season of My Fair Lady, and that was all she wrote.
I think that's personally, I think that's a really smart move. I know when I moved to Seattle, I went with my card. I had gotten it right before I went there, and that was a blessing. I did find that it was difficult to break in for a lot of actors into the equity market once they'd already started as a non-equity actor. Did you find that at Milwaukee?
I didn't. When I went to Milwaukee, I was new to the community, and they only knew me as an equity actor. So I didn't. The community was incredibly welcoming to me, and I ended up working in quite a few of the theaters there. And it's a really lovely theater town, just kind of off the beaten path of Chicago, which is a main theater hub. And just up the road a little bit, there's this great town with this really wonderful arts community. It's got a great museum and several wonderful theaters. And when we talk about Statera a little bit later, I'll tell you a little bit more about where we're having our national conference there this year in October. So Milwaukee is a very special town for me in terms of my professional and personal world all in one. And they were good to me and my family.
Fantastic. A little bit of trivia for those who are listening here. We actually have one of the former artistic directors of Milwaukee Repertory Theater here in our community, working very, very closely with the Canta Center for the Performing Arts. That's one of the reasons why, of course, we're doing this show. When I moved here to St. George, it wasn't known as an arts town, and I don't think it really is known as an arts town. There are these little wonderful gems everywhere of arts, but they're not known. They're secrets. And part of the purpose of this show is to blow the lid off some of these secrets so people are aware of what's here, the opportunities, not only to participate, but also to experience the arts, all of the different arts. And I just found that fascinating to find out that we had him here. We have professional actors who have retired from all over the country. We have professional musicians and visual artists. So as much as I can, I'm going to be letting you know of people to get to know down here in southern Utah. Now, as well, I just want to explain to our listeners a bit of what I mean by the equity card. This is the professional union for actors, and it's interesting. There are a lot of perceptions about the equity card. When I went as an equity artist to South Carolina to work at the Virginia Shakespeare Festival, I had a person on the street come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're equity. You must be a star in movies." And I have to admit I didn't correct them right away, but it really is just a professional affiliation and union for benefits and also so that you can make a living. So that's what we're talking about with that. Now, Melinda, you mentioned that, of course, you went there as an actress and did a lot of work there. Do you have any favorite work that you did in Milwaukee?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, there's a mainstay at Milwaukee Rep, a production of A Christmas Carol that is unlike any Christmas Carol I've seen anywhere else. It's really a special event, and I saw it for many years while I was there, and I participated in it one year, and that was a really special experience. It really it gave me the opportunity to it was a different crowd that came to that show year after year, and with families and young children and people who had grown up coming to that show through their entire childhood, and now are returning in adulthood. So that was really fun. I had beyond that, I can't even think of what shows I did there. It seems like it was forever ago.
Yeah, the career kind of melds together, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, I remember the people that I worked with there more than I remember the projects I worked on, because they really made the experience fulfilling for me, so much more than the work ever did. You know, it really is about the people in the room and creating, collaborating with artists. It was just a really special place to be.
Fantastic. And Melinda, I want you to know I'm thoroughly enjoying this because we do have a history. We have been friends for quite a while. I'm not meeting you for the first time, and I can actually share with you that one of the great things about being a radio host is I get to ask those questions of my friends that I hate getting myself, such as, what was your favorite experience?
Right. As long as you don't ask me how I memorize all those lines. You know better than that.
I just may have to, because I really don't know the answer to that. You just do
right,
it.
Yeah, I actually, it's getting harder and harder with time, right?
Oh, I know. I used to be able to just look at the script and I could recite the role, and I would say to myself, it's just telling the story. But I have to admit, in the last 2-3 years, I have to go over them and over them and over them. New experience.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Well, and I'll tell you, I also, this is a discovery I made 2 years ago when I was trying to read a script. Usually not a problem. I actually caught myself holding it out at arm's length, trying to see the words clearly. And I realized my type had changed at that point.
Who says?
I'm still the same young buck, I tell you.
Right, right,
And what's great about radio is no one can see me, so they'll buy that completely. Now,
right. You are. You are.
Now, let me ask you, a journey that we've both taken in our careers, we certainly have done a few different things, but we're both in academia right now. And I want to let you know that I do work with, in various capacities, a lot of students at Southern Utah University. And you are a very popular acting teacher there, a very popular theatrical force. How are you finding it diving into academia?
It's been an adventure, to say the least. It's really just an extension of I won't speak for you, but I'm guessing you would say the same thing, that it's an extension of what we do in the rehearsal studio or in the rehearsal hall. It's thrilling to be an observer in this part of the journey, for to be in the room with young actors who are just cutting their artistic teeth and making really bold and courageous choices in the room, and are growing at a rate that is exponentially faster and than it ever happens for me now. And it's fun to look back on those days when that was happening for me, when the lines came much faster and with more ease. But it's the best part of the job, just being in the studio and in the rehearsal hall with young minds and young creatives who are just thrilled to do the work.
I'd have to agree 100% on that. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but what I found is I'm a better actor for it, teaching them the basics and going back to the fundamentals. And I've always asserted that true artists are liars and thieves when it comes down to it. You see somebody else make a great choice, and that gets put away in the back of your mind, and it reappears in a performance later on. It's wonderful to be inspired by those students, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. They certainly keep me honest.
That's true.
When I articulate the rules of the game and then, spend so much time demystifying whatever those rules are, and it just to turn those things over and look at them from the other side, it keeps me honest as an artist and keeps things fresh for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, me as well. Now, in addition to your teaching responsibilities at Southern Utah University, you've also been doing some directing of their productions. One of them that I'm particularly interested in, just because it happens to be a favorite of mine, is the Spitfire Grill. Let me ask you, how did you go about choosing that, and how was the experience directing it?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience directing it. First off, again, it's a connection to Wisconsin roots. The writers are both from Wisconsin, one of whom I worked with at the Skylight Theater his name is James Valk, and but it was great that play or that musical had been on my radar for a long time, and I felt particularly close to it. And it was a season selection done by committee here. We thought it would be a great piece for the students and a nice way to push them. And it's a beautiful piece for the fall in particular. But it was really fun to feel that connection to Milwaukee. There are lines about, after these long Milwaukee winters or Wisconsin winters, and then the ladybugs coming out, and that I actually had a reference point for walking down the street with my young daughter at the time, and seeing the ladybugs on the little solar lights, being able to share those stories with the actors. It was really fun, and the music in that piece, as you know, it's just sweeping and all about growth and change renewal, and you can't help but be inspired and just walk around with the feel-goods when you're working on a project like that.
Absolutely. That's actually one I'd love to see more of. I'd love to be a part of it at some point. That show has the exact same feeling for me. Not necessarily in Milwaukee, but of course, something that's in the East that I don't get to see a lot of down here in southern Utah, particularly in St. George, is the fall and the changing of the leaves. And there is just this wonderful, comfortable feeling there. Now, you've also been able to do some controversial shows, and by controversial, I mean ones that might not be accepted as wholesome family comedy shows. And we are, by the way, heading into Urinetown, which I do not put in that category. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Rent. You took that on, what, 2 years ago?
I did.
And how did the students react to Rent? Rent, of course, being by Jonathan Larson, and being quite an affront to, would this be fair to say, an affront to conservatism?
I wouldn't put it that way. I actually, when that piece is about love and of making the most of the relationships in front of you, and of community, and of connecting and supporting our fellow human beings. So because of that, I think it is quite the opposite. And I can't imagine a more important theme to explore in all its many renditions and ways, and all the different packages it comes in, than that of love and coexistence, and trying to do humanity a little bit better and a little bit more compassionately. So for all of those reasons, that play in particular was a gift to me and the entire creative team. It was really a lovely experience to explore that theme and that story together and in southern Utah.
That's fantastic. And I have to tell you, Melinda, that's one of the reasons why I love having you as a friend. And a lot of my friends, a lot of people will just look at a shallow version of the show, or look at how it was received by particular groups. And I think you hit it on the head there, a way that I feel very personally about that show as well. Getting into controversy of shows, there's this show called Urinetown. And I'll tell you, it is a show that I have wanted to do for a very, very long time. And I'm very excited that you're taking it on up in Cedar City at Southern Utah University. And just a little bit of history of Urinetown for the people listening. I know for a fact that the title turns a lot of people off when you say, we're doing Urinetown. That's usually the end of the conversation with a lot of people that I talk to. But then you get into why it was written and how it was written, about how it was written to be an impossible show by two people who were really upset about the fact that producers were saying, we can't produce that for various reasons. And it, getting that cult following. And yes, it's got a title as it is, but I've seen it many, many times. I'm very familiar with it. Whenever I tell the story to people, it's dealing with perhaps something that should be dealt with in a book for 3-year-olds out there, but, that kind of sense of humor here and there. But what a fantastic commentary on society, on politics, and also a fun way to tell the story. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's all of the, first off, it's hilarious and raucous and just ridiculous in moments. In a way that allows you to just unload and just set down the loads of the day and the world, even though it really is about, populism and
it gets deep.
Municipal politics and capitalism and, things of a very serious nature, and things that, quite frankly, can weigh you down in the day-to-day if you just keep up on what's happening economically and politically, and those. It deals with all the things. I mean, you see the play, and through tears of laughter, are thinking this could be the thing that I listened to on the news this morning. This very thing,
Right.
And yet, to sit in a darkened theater and to just share some laughs, belly laughs, and to have a sense of humor about how very real it is, and also the absurdity of it, the lens of absurdity that it is being shown through, is refreshing, and I think is a good dose of medicine for our time.
Absolutely. And what we were talking about earlier about doing it with students in academia, what wonderful energy they bring to it. And they get it and they want to present that story. And I'll tell you, I'm very excited. I'm coming Saturday night to see Urinetown. When does it open officially?
It opens tomorrow night at 7:30 in the Randall L. Jones Theater in Cedar City.
Fantastic. I would, of course, being a fan of the musical, I would encourage anyone to come out and check it out. Also, I am a fan of Melinda's work, and as I said before, I do work with the Southern Utah University students here and there in various capacities, and their energy is out of this world, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And we are going to move into Cetera just one moment. I do want to give a plug as well to the fact that, Melinda, you're stepping into the professional arena of directing this summer, aren't you?
I am. I'll be directing The Merchant of Venice at Utah Shakespeare Festival.
Fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to that, Melinda. It's, as I said earlier, I really appreciate your viewpoints on these shows, Urinetown and Rent and such. And, of course, that being one of the Shakespeares, that's done many, many times, not only at the festival up north, but also theaters around the country and such. And it's always refreshing to see a refreshing take on it. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Now, I'd like to shift just a little bit for what I consider to be one of the most impressive steps of your career as I've followed it, and that's the founding, and I believe you're the co-founder, am I correct on that?
Yes, that's right.
The co-founder and executive director of the Statera Foundation. Could you give us a little explanation as to what that is?
Absolutely. Statera is the Latin word for balance, S-T-A-T-E-R-E, or E-R-A. And we are a nonprofit organization serving, taking positive action for women in the theater. And our goal as an organization is to bring women into full and equal participation in the American theater. And that is about advocacy, it's about mentorship, it's about, we host a conference, a national conference every year. And as I said, this year it will be in Milwaukee in October. And it's an organization that serves women in theater and strives to take on and take action toward making an environment or bettering the environment to so that women are equally represented on our stages and behind them, that there's equal pay. The theater is a little bit behind in terms of equitable pay and just even numbers, sheer numbers of women on our stages, and certainly of numbers of women with a scope of opportunities for a scope of work that they can really sink their teeth into. And that's what we're really interested in making more space to accommodate.
Well, I think there can be no denying this was, I believe, last year and a little bit the year before, there was a period of time where on Facebook, especially amongst our circles, you couldn't see a picture where somebody wasn't holding a sign saying hashtag I am Statera. And that was it was really nice to see so much support for what is an incredibly worthy cause and a very uplifting cause, I would say. Now, with this, you mentioned that you're about inclusion and building the profile and things of that sort. How does Statera do this?
Well, as I mentioned, we host a national conference,
Mm-hmm.
and we also host a mentorship program that is in its beta stage right now, that is going to officially launch nationally at the conference in October. And we also engage with organizations who are interested in diversifying and interested in looking at casting and hiring processes through an intersectional lens, and making sure that their organizations are allowing for many different voices to be heard and for many different perspectives to be represented at the table. And so that the audiences who are coming to see the work at these arts organizations are also able to see themselves represented on the stage, and also their communities represented on the stage.
I think that's wonderful. And there has been a trend that I've noticed lately over the last anywhere from 5 to 10 years, particularly in Shakespeare. And please forgive me for going back to Shakespeare constantly. That's the basis of my training and such. But when we look at Shakespeare productions around the world, it seems like there's an increase of women being cast in traditionally male roles, even the title roles of King Lear or Richard III or Hamlet. And I personally, I see this as a very positive thing in that we're seeing it from a different perspective. I asked a friend of mine who was in one of these productions that was a completely female cast of a Shakespeare show what was so important for her. I wasn't challenging or what have you, but it was really interesting to get perspectives. And she was very sincere when she just looked at me and said, I get to speak these words. I get to bring myself to them. Does that encompass what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. And when you talk about Shakespeare, that is a genre of work that was created for gender imaginative casting, right? I mean, in the beginning, women weren't allowed on the stages. So, in Shakespeare's day, so roles were written for, women were written for men to play them in that day. So this is not a new thing for Shakespeare. Gender imaginative casting is not a new thing. But, I look at it. Yes, I want to speak those lines as an artist. Yes, I want to see myself represented on the stage. But then, I have 3 little girls, I have 3 daughters, and I want them to look up and hear Henry V's St. Crispin Day speech spoken by somebody like them. I want them to be able to see themselves on the stage. And I also want them to see Henry V played by traditionally as a man, So it's not that I want only women represented on the stage and that I want to, create another binary and see more women on the stage than men. I just want to create more space so that, especially when we're talking about Shakespeare and a canon that comes around and around and around, how many Hamlets are we going to see in our lifetime, right?
Absolutely.
That we get to see it and hear it with fresh ears and eyes, and perhaps consider things in new and refreshing ways that allow us to unlock our own blind spots. How can I, as a human being, be a little bit more compassionate, and how can I see things a little bit more, through a lens of love in a way that I haven't been able to, previously. And I think that's the reason we go to the theater, to unlock things that we might not be thinking about, and to consider and view different perspectives and our own, and to turn those around, and it just offers a great opportunity for us to see and hear things and consider things in a new way.
I think absolutely. And for my own experience, whenever I go see a production where you may have a traditionally male character played by a woman, I'll tell you, after about a minute, maybe, of thinking about it, it just goes away. And there is a universality of the role that's being played, the perspective that's being put out there. I have to say, I've seen Henry V now, I'd have to say at least a dozen times. I have yet to see a woman play Henry V, but I will tell you that every single one of those dozen times, Henry was played very differently. I've seen different ages, different races, different physical builds and such. So I don't personally see that it's much different putting a woman in the role. You're just seeing it from another perspective. Does that seem reasonable to say?
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to it, we're talking about the same handful of themes over and over and over in all of the theater we see, right? Love, loss, revenge, hate, greed, corruption. I mean, we're just talking about the same things over and over and over again, right? And while it may manifest differently for the genders or for 2 different people, wherever they identify and however their upbringing has shaped them, we're still just talking and turning over the same themes over and over and over again. And I think there's always something to learn when we can see and hear those and consider them in a different way.
That's, Melinda, very, very well put. I'm sorry to say that we're actually at the end of our half hour here at 2:30. That conversation went actually rather quickly. That's one of the reasons I love having friends of mine on this show, that we can chat about this. I do want to let everyone know that you can catch Melinda's work, her direction of Urinetown, again this weekend up at Southern Utah University. You can also catch some of her directorial work this summer at the Utah Shakespeare Festival for Merchant of Venice. And also, please do check out Statera. How might they find out more information about that, Melinda?
Absolutely. You can visit our website at Statera Foundation, STATERA Foundation.org. And everything you need to know about us is on that website. And if you have any questions, there's also a way for you to reach out to us through that website.
Fantastic. Melinda, thank you so much for giving us your time today, and best of luck in all that you're doing, which sounds pretty darn exciting.
Thanks, Michael. I hope I get to see you Saturday night, and thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Take care, Melinda. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was a very pleasant chat with Melinda Funstein Vaughn. Again, an actress from my day, back over 2 decades ago. Sorry, I don't mean to date you quite that much, Melinda. But yes, we are getting to that age where we do have to hold the scripts out a little bit, and it is a little bit more difficult to memorize the lines. But a fantastic actress, a fantastic director, and also tremendously passionate about a very, very worthy cause, Statera. I do hope that everyone will take advantage of not only these. Please continue to listen to On the Arts with Michael Harding. We've got a wonderful docket of guests coming up in the near future. We have Chris Davies and Chelsea Richards, who are going to talk about their theater over the summer in Nebraska. They actually are here with us during the school year, and they go back and they do their work somewhere else. I've always asserted that the best teachers are the ones that are actually out there doing the work, and I'm very happy to say that they do it, and they are some of the best teachers. As well, we're going to be having some visual artists on talking about sculpture and painting and things of that sort, as well as some more artists on with music. We're going to have returning to our studio Paul Weens, who is, of course, the head conductor of the St. George Chamber Singers, and a whole variety of artists here in southern Utah over the next few weeks. Please give us a listen and help us to blow the lid off these little secrets. And for now, we are going to go back to I cannot even speak English. Richard Strauss. Enjoy.